tatva visyam sahadharmam yatra. Naradhanam bhagavato vichartanti amusya. Samohita vitataya pata maya yate.
Ye bharatitam api cha no nikratim prapanna. Jnanam cha tattva visayam saha dharmamam yatra. Naradhanam bhagavato vitaranti amusya. Samohita vitataya pata mayayate.
Anyone online like to chant? Or Donovan Maharaj?
Can you go to the verse? Ready?
एव्यार्थिताम् अपि च नो नृगतं प्रपन्ना ज्ञानं च तत्त्वविषयं सह धर्मं यात्रा नाराधनं भगवतो वितरान्यमुष्य
नाराधनं भगवतो वितरन्त्यमुष्य
सम्मोहिता विततया बतमायया ते
सम्मोहिता विततया बतमायया ते
Yea, those persons,
We are to come,
desire.
Certainly, Cha and Naha, Bayas, Brahma, and the other demigods. Nirgatim, the human form of life. Prapanaha, have attained. Jnanam, knowledge. Cha and Tattva Vishayam, subject matter about the absolute truth. Sahadharmam, along with religious principles. Yatra, where, not, Aradhanam, worship, Bhagavataha, are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vitaranti, perform, Amusha, of the Supreme Lord. Samavataha, being bewildered. Vitataya, all pervading. Bhatta, alas, Maya, by the influence of the illusory energy. Te, they. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Lord Brahma said, "My dear demigods, the human form of life is of such importance that we also desire to have such a life. For in the human form, one can attain perfect religious truth and knowledge. If one in this human form of life does not understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His abode, it is to be understood that he is very much affected by the influence of external nature. Purport. Brahmaji condemns very vehemently the condition of the human being who does not take interest in the personality of Godhead and his transcendental abode, Vaikuntha. The human form of life is desired even by Brahmaji. Brahma and other demigods have much better material bodies than human beings, yet the demigods, including Brahma, nevertheless desire to attain the human form of life because it is specifically meant for the living entity who can attain transcendental knowledge and religious perfection. It is not possible to go back to Godhead in one life, but in the human form, one should at least understand the goal of life and begin Krishna consciousness. It is said that the human form is a great boon because it is the most suitable boat for crossing over the nescience ocean. The spiritual master is considered to be the most able captain in that boat, and the information from the scriptures is the favorable wind for floating over the ocean of nescience. The human being who does not take advantage of all these facilities in this life is committing suicide. Therefore, one who does not begin Krishna consciousness in the human form of life loses his life to the influence of the illusory energy. Brahma regrets the situation of such a human being. This verse in Srimad Bhagavatam is very astonishing. We find that the demigods, like Lord Brahma, Indra, Chandra, 33 million demigods, who have very exalted positions, very prestigious positions in the material world. And they're living in such opulence in the heavenly planets. Yet it's astonishing that they desire to take birth as human beings, specifically on Bharatavarsha. Why is that? Because the human being has the best chance of getting real knowledge and understanding religious principles so that he can ultimately return home back to Godhead. So this is a very nice analogy that Srila Prabhupada gives, that the human form of life is like a strong boat that's able to cross the ocean of nescience. But the boat has to have a captain, because in the ocean there are many bewildering currents, and sometimes there's hurricanes, and the captain has to manage the boat of the human body in many different conditions, and some of these conditions are dangerous. So the spiritual master is expert in managing his own senses, and he could also manage other senses because he has his own senses controlled. And the Vedas, like the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, and so many Vedic literatures, these are like favorable wind. If you're trying to sail upwind, it takes longer. It's sometimes difficult. But if you're sailing downwind, or if you're sailing on a reach, on a crosswind, then that's a favorable situation. So we should take advantage of this opportunity of this human form of life and not waste it like the cats and dogs without any chance of developing real knowledge and without understanding God. God has given us a brain. God has given us an ear where we can hear transcendental knowledge. We can hear about the kingdom of God in Srimad Bhagavatam. If one wants to understand something that's not known, the easiest way is to hear from an authority. I have never been to Alaska, but I've heard from authorities and from people who have been there that Alaska is a very vast wilderness, and very few people there. And it's very cold, and we learned so many things about Alaska by hearing, and we could have knowledge not by going there, simply by hearing. And similarly, we could have knowledge of God by hearing from God. So in the scriptures of the world, there's God is exalted in all the scriptures, and no one should deride other scriptures like the Bible and Quran and the Torah, because these scriptures also have the same knowledge, but in abbreviated form, just like there are different dictionaries. When I was in elementary school, we had a very simple dictionary, and then when I was in college we had the Merriam-Webster Collegiate Dictionary, which is far more detailed and has far more information. So the Vedas, like Srimad Bhagavatam, these Vedas have the complete information about Krishna and about the kingdom of God, especially in Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto and also 5th canto. And we have the Sri Brahma Samhita, which was discovered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in South India. We have a portion of the Brahma Samhita, and it describes very lucidly descriptions of Krishna, how beautiful he is, like a dark bluish cloud, and he's playing his flute, and he's enchanting hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis. And he's accustomed to herd the cows, and his abode is called Goloka. Goloka means the planet of the cows. And in the spiritual kingdom, the land is made of touchstone. Touchstone means that if you touch iron to this touchstone, the iron turns into gold. And the buildings are made of this touchstone. So we can't even imagine how opulent this place is. But the pure devotees are not interested in any opulence for their own enjoyment, but they simply want to satisfy God. And the pure devotees are satisfied to serve Krishna, even if they go to hell. So if one takes up the process of surrender, sometimes we have to accept things that we don't want to accept in the name of devotional service. And sometimes we have to do things that we don't want to do. But we have to take this austerity for the sake of spiritual advancement. So in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a nice description of Bhardavarsha and the advantages of taking birth in such a place. This is Canto 5, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 19, the island of Jambudweep, and text number 21. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Since the human form of life is the sublime position for spiritual realization, all the demigods in heaven speak in this way. How wonderful it is for these human beings to have been born in the land of Bhardavarsha. They must have executed pious acts of austerity in the past, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself must have been pleased with them. Otherwise, how could they engage in devotional service in so many ways? We demigods can only aspire to achieve human births in Bhardavarsha to execute devotional service, but these human beings are already engaged there. Purport. These facts are further explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 941. Bharta Bhumite Haile Manusha Janmayar, Janma Sarta Digakari, Kara Karpar, Upakar, one who has taken his birth as a human being in the land of India, Bharatvarsha, should make his life successful and work for the benefit of all other people. There are many facilities in India, Bharatvarsha, for executing devotional service. In Bharatvarsha, all the acharyas contributed their experience, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally appeared to teach the people of Bharatvarsha how to progress in spiritual life and be fixed in devotional service to the Lord. From all points of view, Bharatvarsha is the special land where one can very easily understand the process of devotional service and adopt it to make his life successful. If one makes his life successful in devotional service and then preaches devotional service in other parts of the world, people throughout the world will actually benefit. The demigods continue. After performing the very difficult tasks of executing Vedic ritualistic sacrifices, undergoing austerities, observing vows, and giving charity, we have achieved this position as inhabitants of the heavenly planets. But what is the value of this achievement? Here, we are certainly very engaged in material sense gratification, and therefore we can hardly remember the lotus feet of Lord Narayan. Indeed, because of our excessive sense gratification, we have almost forgotten his lotus feet. Or the land of Bharatvarsha is so exalted that by taking birth there, one can not only attain the heavenly planets, but also go directly back home, back to Godhead. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 9:25, Yanti Deva Vrta Devan, Pritrin Yanti Prativrtaha, Bhutani Yanti Bhutani, Yanti Yajino Pimam. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. Those who worship ancestors go to the ancestors, and those who worship me will live with me. People in the land of Bharatvarsha generally follow the Vedic principles and consequently perform great sacrifices by which they can be elevated to the heavenly planets. However, what is the use of such great attainments? As stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:21, Shane Punya Marta Lakam Vashanti. After the results of one's sacrifices, charity, and other pious activities expire, one must return to the lower planetary systems and again feel the pangs of birth and death. However, when they becomes Krishna conscious, can go back to Krishna, Yanti Mad Yachino Pimam. Therefore, the demigods even regret having been elevated to the higher planetary systems. The denizens of the heavenly planets regret that they could not take full advantage of being born in the land of Bharatvarsha. Instead, they became captivated by a higher standard of sense gratification, and therefore they forgot the lotus feet of Lord Narayan at the time of death. The conclusion is that one who has taken birth in the land of Bharatvarsha must follow the instructions given personally by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yad Gadvananda Vartante Tadama Paramamama. One should try to return home, back to Godhead, to the Vaikuntha planets, or to the topmost Vaikuntha planet, Goloka Vrindavan, to live eternally in full blissful knowledge in the company of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text number 23. A short life in the land of Bharatvarsha is preferable to a life achieved in Brahmaloka for millions and billions of years, because even if one is elevated to Brahmaloka, he must return to repeated birth and death. Although life in Bharatvarsha and the lower planetary system is very short, One who lives there can elevate himself to full Krishna consciousness and achieve the highest perfection, even in this short life, by fully surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Thus one attains Vaikuntha Loka, where there is neither anxiety nor repeated birth in the material body. Text number 24. An intelligent person does not take interest in a place, even in the topmost planetary system, if the pure Ganges of topics concerning the Supreme Lord's activities does not flow there, if there are not devotees engaged in service on the banks of such a river of piety, Jai Shri Gaur Nitai, or if there are no festivals of Sankirtan Yagya to satisfy the Lord, especially since Sankirtan Yagya is recommended in this age. So this is a very deep verse, text 24. If one wants to know any great person in this material world, one has to approach that person with a sincere attitude of service. If one is puffed up or if one is envious of such a person, it's not possible to know that person perfectly. But if one serves that person, it's possible that he'll reveal himself. So similarly, if we want to know the greatest person, Krishna or Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the only way is devotional service. There's no other way to come to an understanding, because knowledge of God and knowledge of the abode of God is confidential knowledge. Simply by academic book knowledge, one cannot understand. One has to hear submissively with an attitude of service. And one has to take help and guidance from a representative of Krishna who's in the disciplic success from Krishna and from Brahma. So this is a very confidential verse, and it's very valuable for everyone who aspires to solve all the problems of life and return back home, back to Godhead. Are any comments or questions? Dr. Joseph?
Hare Krishna. Thank you for speaking, Prabhu. I was thinking about how important it is for us to be told that this material world is undesirable and sufferable. And I was thinking about an example that Prabhupada gives. He gives an example of like a friend who comes to the hospital to see, his friend. And his friend is there in that bed. He's stuck in that bed. He's passing stool in that bed. And he's needing to be cleaned regularly so an obnoxious smell doesn't develop. And when he asks his friend how he's doing, his friend says, "Oh, I'm doing all right." So I was just thinking about how that's our position in this material world. We're just suffering, but we can't see it, or we're just trying to stay afloat or create an image of ourselves that's all right, And then I was also really liking, how the guru is the captain of our ship across all nations. So we need to hear from the gurus and the acharyas. And then I was reminded that that's what the position of guru is to let us know that it's better to stay on the ship than to jump overboard. And to warn us of the dangers of trying to swim across the ocean, which should be clear, but isn't. For in our unfortunate position, we can't see the danger of the ocean that we're trying to cross. some thoughts. I did have a question too, but I'd like to be respectful of everyone else and any comments that you'd like to make.
Yes. Thank you. What's your question?
In the purport, Prabhupada writes that we can't go back to Godhead in just one life. So I wanted to ask about that.
Well, generally that's true, but by the mercy of a pure devotee, it's possible. There are three kinds of perfect devotees. There's Nitya Siddha, who is never contaminated. There's a Sadhana Siddha, who is engaged in the regular principles of Bhakti Yoga. And there's a Kripa Siddha. The Kripa Siddha becomes advanced by the special mercy of Guru or Acharya, or by the special mercy of Krishna. But that's very rare. The usual process is to perform pious activities, and by performing pious activities, one gets a chance to associate with pure devotees. By the accumulation of life after life at pious activities, one gets a chance to associate with the pure devotees of Krishna. And then by the mercy of the pure devotees, one gets a chance to go back home, back to Godhead. So if a person comes to the temple and the first day he's here, he's chanting 16 rounds, he's going to all the temple functions morning and evening, he's going out for Sankirtan, book distribution, and engaging 24 hours a day in devotional service, we can understand that in his past life, that person was a devotee of Krishna, but he wasn't perfect in the past life. So in this life, he's finishing up his business. Thank you for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. All glorious this divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Now it's time for the Sankirtan festival.
Hare Krishna. So we will try our best to announce the scores in a way which is pleasing to Shri Shri Gaura Nitai, Lord Nrsimhadev and Prahlad Maharaj, Tulsi Maharani, all the Vaishnava Acharyas, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and all the assembled devotees. Haribol. Okay. So here we go. Okay. So this week we have 1, 2, 3, 4 book distributors. Haribol. Okay, coming in fourth position with 2 small books for a total of 0.5 book points. Sarva Mangala Mataji. Haribol. And in third position with one Maha Big Book, we have a team for 2 book points, Triveni Mataji and Bhakti Neva. Haribo. Also, we have a fifth distributor, which is a team score. We have one Maha Big Book for a total of 2 book points. Bhakta Cody and Makadari Das. Haribo. Additionally, we have second place with one Maha Big Book, Bhakti Neva. Haribo. And in first position with 4 small books, 1 medium book, and 1 big book, and 1 Maha Big Book for 4.25 book points, Bhakta Joseph. Haribo. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. So we have 2, 10.5. We have a total of 10 book points for RVC. Haribo. Okay, back to Joseph.
Hare Krishna. On Saturday, we went to the plaza for Mahaharinam, and there was a nice gentleman. His name was Zio. And Zio, he said he was there to go on a date. The date never showed up. And yeah, so he was a real good sport about it, and he was excited to meet the devotees. He said we had nice energy, and you know, he made a comment, you know, how things happen for a reason, and maybe this was just so he could get the book, and it was a Bhagavad Gita and Nectar of Instruction. So made a nice donation, and he gave a lot of nice words to the devotees in appreciation for their service. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna. So this past Saturday, me and other Matachis, we joined the team, the RVC Temple for the Harinam at the plaza. And we had this gentleman, he came in, and one of the Prabhus, he was talking to him, and he invited them in for the prasad that they were handing out. And in my head, I was like, oh gosh, you know, I'm not like, how, like, should I talk to him about the book or not? Or, you know, and then finally I did. And he was like, oh, and I was like, it's just $5. And they were like, only $5? Okay, I'll take it, you know, and then, yeah. So yeah, that was it. And then, okay, so the second one was with me, with Triveni Mataji. So we were done with Harinam. We were all packed up, and we crossed the street, and there was this restaurant, and this guy, he was sitting there this entire time watching us. And he was like, so we crossed the street, and we were just passing by the restaurant. And then he stopped us, and he was like, what you guys were doing down there? I saw you guys dancing with those guys. And I was like, and then we and then we were like, oh, we are part of this RVC temple, and this is what we are. And we were doing Harinam, which is like chanting the holy name of Lord Krishna. And I thought about, oh, let me just, you know, talk him into getting a book. So Triveni had a bag full of books, and I handed that over, and we talked to him about what the book was about, and the whole, you know, story about the war, and the introduction, and how it's, you know, goes into elevating your consciousness and meditation and all of that good stuff. And then yeah, and then we invited him over for our feast. So we were hoping to see him yesterday, but we'll see. In the future he might, you know, you never know. But yeah, Hare Krishna.
So, Hare Krishna. I think there was a Prabhu that came to the temple. I think it was his first time visiting, and he was saying that he was from India and some things. He was in school, and he came to visit and have prasad and had morning class, and he was really enjoying it. And me and Magadari asked him if he had any books like Bhagavad Gita or anything else. And we took him over to the book corner over there, and we were showing some of Prabhupada's books and things. And he said that he has Gitas, back home. But we asked him if he had anything here, and he said that he didn't. And we showed him Prabhupada's Gita, and he was very receptive with it. And we asked him for a donation, and he was very receptive. So Gita Jai.
Okay. Thank you very much. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. If you would like to participate in Transcendental Book Distribution, please do let us know. We want to help facilitate that desire. It is very pleasing service to Lord Krishna and to Sri